Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to the coverage for the Xbox Community League Pro Series Championship here on TRTN. As always, I am Regan Clark, and you join us a little over a month's hiatus off for the look of Round 4. Here in a rain-soaked Schuyler County in the state of New York at the former home of the United States Grand Prix here at the Watkins Glen International Circuit. Constructed as a dedicated facility in 1956, this circuit cut its teeth throughout history as a prime venue for the world of stock car and endurance racing. NASCAR and IMSA have operated out of this venue since its opening year. The longest running event has been the 6 hours of Watkins Glen. More notably, on the international stage, this venue was the former home of the United States Grand Prix, which ran here for 19 years, from 1961 to 1980, in what is argued as the most dangerous era of Grand Prix racing. Heading out, I should say, of 3 rounds of racing for this season, let's take a look at the race winners so far. It has been a measured scope of dominance by all of 2 names. Wilson Gige of Fats GT Esports and Tobias Sievert of Exclusive Esports. But in spite of their control at the front of the pack at the checkered flag, mistakes by both in Red Bull Ring and Brands Hatch at rounds 2 and 3 have allowed for another driver to usurp the championship lead before he takes a race win of his own, that being Tadeusz Lichka of Velocity Racing. Pardon me. Looking at the championship standings heading into round 4, we find Tadeusz Lichka of Velocity leading the charge with 115 points to his name. That's 7 points up the road from Tobias Sievert of Exclusive Esports down in second place. Wilson Gige with Fats GT in third with 106 points. Jake Garrett only a single point behind with Euro Titans in 4th place. That's 10 points between the top 4 alone. Rounding out the top 5, Tyler Vermack of Velocity Racing with 84 points, ahead of Levi Warner with Fats GT of 72 points. A joint 7th place we can see between Ben Rook and Melvin Milliston, 70 points apiece for Simplay and Velocity. Carlos Deesh of 5-Star Esports in 9th with 69 points, 2 points ahead of Toby Cyril to round out that top 10. Well, this is going to be quite an exciting round of the championship, make no mistake of it. Getting a look into the regs for today, very same to what we saw back at round 1 all the way a month ago now. Back in Imola in the latter half of October, we find once again the single-hour format, a single mandatory pit stop with fuel on that mandate and a minimum stop of 25 seconds. According to calculations passed forward to us by our associates at XCL TV, the range for that in and out time is going to be in the range of 57 seconds to a minute, depending on execution. So it is going to be absolutely vital here with much less time to play for and much more dire conditions on display for today, right in the final 10 minutes or so of free practice before we get on to qualifying. And it is going to be quite an exciting qualifying to come forward with, because as you can see, both Sievert and Gige do not find themselves even inside of that top 3. To Toby Cyril of VXS Motorsport, currently the fastest in the session so far, 152.657, and that's up the road from Carlos Deesh of 5-Star Esports with Aston Martin. And then you have Dan Davis, a reserve there competing for Simplay Racing, the number 14 Lamborghini, mind you, in 3rd place ahead of Melvin Milliston and Tobias Sievert. So it is going to be quite exciting. Looking at the balance of performance for today, we do find ourselves in a law of extremes for Lexus, Ford, Mercedes and Aston, the only double figures of this category. Lexus losing 15 kilos. And then further down the order, we can see BMW loses 5 kilos, and then into the more negligible changes for this round, Porsche losing 3, Ferrari losing 1, McLaren gaining 5. Then Lamborghini will be gaining 7 kilos for this round, with Ford gaining 12, Mercedes gaining 15, and Aston Martin right at the short end of the stick with a 17 kilo ballast for round 4 of the championship in what is the wettest race of the season by a country mile. Drivers have already protested conditions such as this, and it is going to make for a very wild, very controversial round in the bookings here today in Schuyler County, New York State. Just before the end of free practice, let's see if we can catch on board the driver currently on their way around the track. And just as we catch on board here with Dan Davis, the number 14 Lamborghini making his way around the 90. So let's try and break down this track right before we get into the thick and fast of it during the course of qualifying. Up through the 90, then in towards turn 2 and 3 and 4 here at the S's. Before we make our way on to the back straight, you can see already trouble there as he understeers into the wall and then carries through on the wall there at turn 4. It is super ropey for that number 14 to find any available grip down here towards the inner loop chicane. Now, I've been told by some informants of mine that there is standing water here in the inner loop chicane. It's at its highest risk at this section here between turns 4 and 5. Now, as we enter the outer loop, things can get very, very dicey when we're looking at north of 30 cars on the track when we go racing not too far from now. Down towards turn 6, another area I'm told has a lot of standing water. You can see catching there on the number 14 as he slides into the wall. Trouble for Dan Davis right off of the bat. Of course, we've been in this session for upwards of 60 minutes today for an hour-long free practice session. We're just catching on with the last 10 minutes. We catch here with Carlos Dish, currently second fastest and driving at this time for 5-Star Esports, the former K1 Esports team, the number 54 Aston Martin on his way out of turn 6, down towards turn 7 at toe. In and around then what is the international section, sometimes called the boot section of the track, as we exit turn 7 onto another back straight we find here, much shorter than the officially declared back straight. This is the boot straight, as it were. Down towards turn 8 we go at heel. The very awkward corner geometry in the wet conditions is going to make for a very mixed bag performance by a lot of drivers today, as it's not going to be necessarily the same corner every single time. It's going to be a lot like a box of chocolates. You just never really know what it is you're gonna get. On the exit of turn 9 and towards turn 10, we follow here with Carlos Dish on our unofficial tour of the Watkins Glen International Circuit. A real jewel here on the American lineup for ACC, up there with Laguna Seca and Kota as the available American venues, but instead taking his run through turn 11 to the pit lane goes Dish. Looking around the field, you can see it is an astronomical field we see here today. We can actually follow in the center of our screens there. That's the 313 of Ian Skeen. You can see all around him a myriad of teams coming out for round 4 of the championship. Things are still very, very close. As mentioned in those standings, we see here with Wilson Gige. He finds himself right now 32nd and yet to have set a valid time, so it speaks, in this session so far. Out through turn 5, out the outer loop. To comment back on that championship standings, it is 4 drivers at the front of the field, separated by 10 points front to back. So that comprises Lichka, Sievert, Gige, and Garrett. That's 4 different teams as well. Velocity, Exclusive, Fats GT, and Euro Titans all still in contention here before the halfway mark of the championship. And speaking of the halfway mark, we're not too far from it here, so we'll be right alongside for the run into round 5 on the 6th of December. You can see the events marked with the red sort of diamond on the left-hand side are the ones we'll be covering. The rest will be covered by our friends over at the XCL TV channel. You'll be catching them for the entire second half of the championship, but you're with us for here in round 4 and round 5 from the 22nd of November to the 6th of December. I'm thoroughly looking forward to this round, and equally in parts looking forward to the next one at Mount Panorama, a real favourite of ours here on TRTN. And we're not far from that championship midway. If things keep up as they are, it is going to be a very, very close fight for the championship come round 10, oh so long away. Down towards the line then comes Wilson Gige across the line to 21st, so something clearly amiss whether or not he's testing setups this late into the session. With only 2 minutes left to go, time is quickly dropping out of his favour. Watching his way up through the S's here, Gige has been on impeccable form this season, but in spite of all of that, his 30th place result in Brands Hatch last round put him down to 3rd place behind that of Tobias Sievert. Now, those two are only divided by 2 points in the championship when we head in around 4 here, so things can still massively tilt on their head. But right now, if we take a look back into those overall timings, we can still see that neither of our budding 2, let alone our budding 3, when you consider the leader, that being Tadeusz Lichka, are inside of that top 3. See right now, front to back divided by just under 0.4 of a second between Cyril, Dish, and Davis. Things have stayed as they are, though, around that top 5 as well. Melvin Milliston of Velocity Racing remains in 4th place. Tobias Sievert remains in 5th. From behind him, Freno Radic in 6th place. Tyler Vermack on his way to the line from 7th. Could there be an improvement here as he crosses the line? Sadly, not the case. Following in his trails behind him, I believe that to be there, one of the 5-Star Esports BMWs. We'll have to catch on with them in a little while. That's the number 92. I might actually be wrong on that. 92, I believe that is actually... Yes, no, it's Jan Bettentrup who we were thinking of there. So looking further down the order from where we were watching with Tyler Vermack, Harry Thompson of SRC finds himself in 8th place. Chris Farish in 9th, and Spencer Brown rounds out that top 10. Nicholas Dahl just outside by a couple thousandths there. If you take a look at the gap, it is a 25,000th of a second gap between himself and Spencer Brown, just outside of that top 10. Right at the very end here of free practice when we get into a 15-minute qualifier. 10 seconds left to go in free practice. You can see quite a few cars still out on track using every single second of this session to try and generate as much data as they can for an efficient qualifying performance. Plenty of drivers still out on track. Let's see if we can catch on with a few. Next to the line at the moment appears to be the number 19. That's Lee Hemming with STR Esports. Finds his way in towards the pit lane, so it seems though, right at the very end of free practice. Also out on track at this time as well, the number 148, Martijn van Manen. With VXS Motorsport, his teammate Toby Cyril still currently at the top of those timing charts. He himself yet to have found his way outside of the top 20. Or into the top 20, I suppose, is the better choice of words. Out through turn 11 we go. He's also into the pit lane, so a lot of drivers calling it quits here just before the start of qualifying. Nearest to the line, Tyler Vermaak on his foire run, his finale run with the Velocity Racing team. Of course, we've seen his chapter already having begun with his time over at the exclusive esports team, but this is his final participation with Velocity Racing, as he agreed to do so from the start of the season before this change was made. To the line then comes Vermaak from 7th place, sadly, by the looks of it, to no improvement in free practice. But of course, the main event is only around the corner. Nearest to the line at the moment, the number 23. We catch on board here. Oh, we were going to, but never mind, so it seems. So 15 minutes of qualifying and a lively grid here in absolutely battered conditions here in Watkins Glen. Sadly, we don't have any statistical data to bring to the table here on an exact qualifying prediction. All you really need to do is take a look at that session at large, and moreover take a look at the last couple of pole sitters, that being Wilson Gige in round 1, in Imola rounds 2 and 3 of the Red Bull Ring, and Brands Hatch went to Tobias Siebert. So those are your two to watch, but let's never say never in the situation of another driver coming through to take pole. You can see up the road from Melvin Milliston as his teammate Tadeusz Lichka, the championship leader here as we head into round 4. In through the inner loop chicane, we're on board with Milliston. Right from behind him there, you can see his Carlos Disch and Tobias Siebert. Finn Gombert not too far away either as we make our way through turn 5, and you can see these are the worst conditions on track we've seen all season, and that's going to carry over into the race. Right now, weather predictions have it at a 98% chance of a full wet race, and it would be similar conditions to this, if not exactly what you were seeing right now. Monstrous rooster tailing from the cars at the moment. We can see barely any view here for Carlos Disch. He's caught right up into the spray generated by Milliston, and that's the same story from right behind him there for Tobias Siebert. He can barely see a thing making his way into turn 7. Now, to reiterate as well, not only do these qualifying sessions have great importance for the run into the race today, as we now see Milliston overtaking Lichka. We'll be staying on board with him for the first flying laps here in qualifying, on board with the 68 of what is now the 997. Quite a few drivers have now changed their numbers, so there will be a few of those inaccuracies, and we can only apologize enough for that, but that seems to be the new going rates for the folks over at Velocity. They've ditched the more personalized number scheme. Lichka used to have the 888, Milliston used to have the 68. Now they've got the 996 and the 997 respectively. Moreover, let's just get on to the flying laps at hand here. Now, not only do they have great importance in terms of the overall positioning for the race ahead, they also generate points for our drivers today. It's 3 points for pole position, so every ounce counts here in round 4. Thoroughly excited to see where the next chapter takes us, as we are given the first opportunity to cover a 2-hour race coming up on round 5. But let's focus in the here and now. Up through the S's goes Milliston. You can see but millimeters from the wall. We saw not too long ago, Dan Davis was in at the wall when we were following on board with that Lamborghini towards the trailing end of free practice. Milliston down towards the inner loop chicane. This is where a lot of standing water has been reported. Right now, he's able to navigate with relative ease. He's having to take a sizable chunk out of those curbs. Now on the exit of turn 5, through the outer loop, in towards turn 6 we go. You can see how violently it snaps back on itself. It's an undulating design here. It goes from cambered in on one side, cambered in on the other. Got this flowing, almost ribbon-like design through that middle sector. In towards turn 7 we go then, down at the toe, as we enter the boot section. Now on the exit of turn 7, onto the boot straight we go. Down towards turn 8. Milliston set to become the first flying lap time on the charts here. In through to turn 8 we go. Into turn 9, then turn 10 and 11 coming up here. See, taking things nice and easy. Now, this is going to be the trade-off we see with a lot of these cars, and it's a real case study to be had between the mid-engines and the front engines. I'm going to rope the rear engines in with the mid-engines on this one, as we see Melvin Milliston down towards the line to become the first flying lap on the charts here. From behind him is Tadeusz Lichka, 155.537 by Milliston. What can Lichka do as he crosses the line? So it seems only a second off. Then Carlos Diez to the line with 5-star. Then here comes Tobias Siebert up to third fastest. From behind him is Finn Gombert as he makes his way to the line, now up to 4th fastest. Matthew Copsey to the line with high caliber, remains in 6th place. Up the road is Joachim Eriksson, goes to 6th. Then from behind him, Martijn van Manen goes up to, let's see it, as he crosses the line. Sadly, doesn't put a time on the charts. Nico Schaska, the reserve driver for the Onid Racing team, to the line in the 992, 6th fastest. Then from behind him, there's Dan Davis, goes on to pole by 0.3 of a second. So a great first impression for Davis here in qualifying. The 36 from behind him as well. We saw to the line Jamal Clouden of Simplay Racing now drops out of the top 10 entirely as Dave Spiller, another reserve for Onid, makes his way to the top 10. Then Daniel Carborg into 6th place. The 24 next across the line, trying to catch on with as many drivers as possible here. As we see right now, the 787 on his way to the line. Here comes Chris Farish and up to 2nd fastest. Then from behind him, the 413, James Mason of 5-Star Esports. Actually, as I say, that's not James Mason. So used to seeing that number, but no, it's on the reserve driver for today, and that's Yasserevich Riyad, now 4th fastest. So the reserves really going above and beyond to fill in for the shoes of their current mainstay drivers. We've seen this out of Davis and Riyad so far. They find themselves in the top 5, admittedly now pushed out of commission by that of Toby Cyril. Goes on to 2nd fastest, but it's Wilson Gige fastest in the session so far. So we've seen quite a few drivers come along and challenge for that fastest time. Now we also see Freno Radic into the top 5, pushing Davis down to 5th place. Nearest to the line at this time appears to be that of the 997. So we're going to catch back on board with Melvin Milliston on his way to the line. From behind him, you can see in the background is Tadeusz Lichka. Milliston 2nd fastest. What can Lichka improve upon? Making his way to the line, and Lichka 8th fastest. And the 789 across the line a moment ago, and a sizable improvement for Tobias Siebert. Could he be going for a hat-trick of pole positions? The 788 from behind him now across the line. And we'll have to try and see exactly where they put themselves on the charts there. Finn Gombert 6th fastest as it currently stands. The 97 of Matthew Copsey was but a moment there in the top 10. As now we've seen across the line a moment ago. That of Martijn van Manen, he maintained 2nd place. Carlos Diez currently 3rd. Trying to see where that improvement came from for but a moment ago. I think it was the 148. So yeah, you would be looking in the direction of Martijn van Manen. Recent improvements there on the charts for the 987. Nicholas Dahl now to 7th. 593 across the line. So comes the 294 as well. We see the 294 Harry Thompson of SRC Motorsports getting closer and closer to a top 5 as we now burn into halfway of qualifying. The 923 across the line a moment ago. Spencer Brown makes it a Ford 123 here. And with Wilson Gige only a few tenths of a second away from Carlos Diez, could it be a Ford 1234? Of course, we spoke all the way back in Imola on the potential fears of a Ford dominant championship. And I think fears have now swiftly become reality, because to the line, Toby Cyril to fastest by 6 whole tenths of a second. A jaw-dropping statistic for what could have been a Ford 1234. Ferrari, the saving grace, and BMW following suit there. Freno Radic and Alberto Aragonese's 4th and 3rd. 997 nearest to the line on what appears to be a valid flying lap. Of course, we could still see those clock in without. We're just basing this off of the data on track. Milliston to the line, 2nd fastest. Lichka following in pursuit. We'll see where Lichka manages to slot in over the course of this session. Lichka 14th. So despite leading the championship, it's not the greatest qualifying. The 788 approaching the line. And up to 9th place goes Finn Gombert. 97, Matthew Copsey now inside the top 10 once again, but by how much longer is that going to stand? The 333 across the line a moment ago. That was Joachim Eriksson up to the top 20. 19th now as he crosses the line. The 992 nearest to the line, I believe that to be Nico Schaska, and we've just seen sizable improvement there as we tried to intercept, and he's up to 12th now as he crosses the line. The 313, I believe, just crossed the line. That was Ian Skeen, and right behind him was, looking at it there, the number 987 and Nicholas Dahl, both of them now up into the top 15. Skeen up into the top 5 for Aston Martin. Milliston, second fastest, so Ford's dominance of qualifying is swiftly being interrupted. You can see a very close gap between second, third, and fourth. From second to third, you're looking a factor of about 12 thousandths of a second. From third to fourth, it's about 3 thousandths. 30 thousandths, I should say. 30 thousandths of a second. It is mind-boggling statistics to keep up with. And then if you look to Dave Spiller at the back of the top 5, it's another 13 thousandth, then 4 hundredths of a second, or 40 thousandths. And then looking at it here is 17 thousandths of a second. So it is really down to the finite details here. Double-figure milliseconds to the line for a lot of drivers to decide position on track right now. Aragonesi's to the line, 6th place. Cross but a moment ago. The 78 nearest to the line from behind him, and we've just seen an improvement there for Chris Grad of Blaze Motorsport, now to 20th. And a whole swarm of cars coming from behind, including the 987, if my memory does not mistake me. No, it was the 997, and now to within 2 hundredths of a second to the fastest time by Toby Cyril. Melvin Milliston, with 5 minutes left to go, closes the gap on what looks like a gargantuan effort between first, second, and what was going to be third. We are now seeing more and more drivers slip beneath that half-second margin. 2 more into the fray with Finn Gombert third, Matthew Copsey on a serious comeback for High Caliber in 4th. See, Tyler Vermack now makes that 5's company to be within half a second of pole. Nico Shaska across the line now up the road from Tobias Sievert. We've seen there Riyad Yasarevich, or Yasarevich Riyad, depending on how you say it, was up to 6th for but a moment there. Nicholas Dahl now up to 6th ahead of him by a factor of 115 thousandths of a second. 294 across the line a moment ago. Harry Thompson to 8th from behind him. We can see there that was Wilson Gige up to pole by nearly a full second. We've seen the margins get wider and wider and wider every time a new driver makes his way up to pole. It's not a slow climb that you ought to expect. It is a leap and bound. We see Tobias Siebert now second fastest in the session. Now brings himself even closer to within that sub half a second margin. Toby Cyril now finds himself charging to the line. Can he make up from what was 9 tenths only to 8 tenths at this time? So quite the dramatic change here. Fats GT has been going tit for tat, really, with a lot of different teams, namely Exclusive and VXS, as it's been really a fight of the Fords here in the United States. 3 minutes, 40 seconds left to go in what is downpour of biblical proportions here in Schuyler County, New York State. This has given rise to a phenomenal qualifier. 23 across the line a moment ago. A 996 not far from the line here. See if we can catch on board with them. I don't think we will in time, sadly, as we, yes, just saw them across the line in the 996 of Tadeusz Lichka, now to the top 10. You just see there, Carlos Dish across the line, now 3rd fastest for 5-Star Esports. It is really any man's game here. I really am quite glad that we didn't have the facilities to make a qualifying prediction, because it would not have done relative service to what we are seeing here. It is really the Wild West here in the United States. And the downpour has given rise to one of the most flavorful qualifying sessions I've seen in a good while. It is really any man's competition to play for here in round 4 of the championship. Across the line a moment ago went the 987. And the 987 Nicholas Dahl now up into the top 15 once again. The 923 not far from the line. It's Spencer Brown of Fats GT. The Mustang down towards the line from 13th place up the road. You can see with the number 24 of Wilson Gige. Across the line, Brown maintains position for the time being. 593 across the line a moment ago. If we look down the order, that being Daniel Carborg of Frantic Motorsport, now 24th. The 147 is charging to the line. Keep an eye here for Toby Cyril. 2 minutes left to go. Functionally, this is among the final laps we'll see. Second fastest as he crosses the line. The 36 following in pursuit. We'll see if they can make their way to the top 10. Sadly, didn't appear to be the case. 149, not far off the mark here. And across the line a moment ago went Ellison Williams of XCL Motorsport, now putting their extra car into 18th. 194 across the line as well. Alberto Aragonesi of SRC into the top 20.
Number 23 and the number 98 are on their way to the line. We'll catch on board here with Freno Radic, who appears to be on a valid flying lap. We'll see, though, if there is an improvement to be expected up the road. Sadly, didn't appear to be the case for Radic across the line up to 5th. And from behind him, you can see there, that's the black and gold Aston Martin. 5-star Esports is Carlos Dish to the line to an improvement. He's got one more lap to play for. This could be really any man's pole position here. Will it be Gige? Will it be Cyril? Will it be Siebert? Will it be Dish? Or will it be Radic? Or could it be, for love nor money, could it be someone else? We're in that fleeting chapter here of round 4's qualifier, and I must say we are already off to a fantastic note, and it is really ahead of what is going to be the calm before the storm. Heading in to that opening lap, expect there to be carnage here in Watkins Glen. The rain has decreed it so, as it were. Across the line, Dan Davis back up into the top 10, 6th place in the number 14 Simplay Racing Lamborghini. Number 24, not far from the line. Will it be an extension on his fastest to 152? 362 to beat, and across the line goes Gige onto another flying lap. Wasn't an improvement that time around. Will there be another one to be expected? We'll catch on with him a little later on. 593 across the line. And sadly didn't appear on our radars just there, but Daniel Carborg, 25th right now, 147 to the line. We've seen continual improvement by Cyril. Can it be a pole position to round things out here in Watkins Glen? To the line, Cyril's got one more chance from behind him. You can see as Riyad Yasarevich on his way down to, actually, sorry, that's Jan Bettentrup, my mistake. One of the 5-star Esports BMWs. We'll actually try and catch Yasarevich. He's down at turn 6. 194 across the line, right at the very end of qualifying today. The 194, that being Alberto Aragonese's 22nd at the end of qualifying. Trying to catch next to the line, the 23 car on his way towards the end of the line here. John Williams of Fats GT following him in. Appears to be that of Freno Radic. They're at the end of their time here in quali. Here comes Carlos Dish of the 54 5-star Esports Aston Martin to the line. Needed only a few hundredths of a second, but it was just a little too far away this time around. The 788 not far from the line here, folks. Keep an eye on the 788. Gombert across the line, 9th place. From behind him, the 997. Here comes Melvin Milliston in 8th place right now, not far off of his teammate Tyler Vermack. Couldn't find enough to get up and ahead of him. Nico Shaska to the line in the 992. Onid Racing Porsche in 10th, up to 8th. Very, very well done right at the very end of his qualifying endeavours. The 413, Yasarevich Riyad of 5-star Esports with BMW down to the line. We had him confused with his teammate Jan Bettentrup. Across the line, 21st. We saw a big incident behind him for Niklas Dahl, and he ends this qualifying session 17th. The 24, here comes a potential pole position here for Gige. He's into the pits and satisfied. Well, nearest to the line right now looks to be the 78. That being Chris Grad. He's into the pits. The 789 could have one more thing left to say. Siebert to the line. Could it be pole for the 789? Across the line he goes. And second fastest right at the very end of quali. An admirable effort there by Tobias Siebert. Close, but no cigar. 33 and the 36 to the line. And we'll get a full view of the grid in just a moment. Oh, that's the end of qualifying, folks, and it has been an absolute roaring time here in Watkins Glen. The wet weather has given us a lot to talk about, and coming up into this coming race for an hour here at round 4, it is going to be a very, very exciting one, if a bit chaotic coming up. Just one moment. So, before we get on to the discussion of the grid at hand, we have a few articles of news around the world of motorsports. Now, getting a look into our first article of news comes out of the World Endurance Championship, as after his time with Alpine, Mick Schumacher announces his departure. Now, rumours speculate he could be moving to McLaren, whether via WEC or IndyCar, but these reports are scattered and unsubstantiated at best as of right now. The bottom line, though, he'll be leaving Alpine at the end of this year. Article of news comes quite relevantly here when we're at a NASCAR track on the topic of NASCAR. Chevrolet updates their body for their car for 2026. Now, the changes include a larger bonnet power dome, a revised front grille, and more pronounced rocker panels. On either side of the car, they'll be continuing to use the Camaro ZL1. Well, that's all for news right now as we see the grid here about a minute and 20 seconds before we get onto the formation lap. And it's Wilson Gige on pole position. Very well fought for and a great effort to get himself up to second place. Close but no cigar. Tobias Sievert starts on the front row alongside Gige in second place. Toby Cyril makes a Ford 1-2-3 with VXS Motorsport. He's in third alongside him on that second row. 5-Star Esports is Carlos Deesh in the 54 Aston Martin. On the third row and rounding out the top five, Freno Radic of Euro Titans Esports. Alongside him is Dan Davis of Simplay Racing, the reserve driver in the number 14 Lamborghini. A great effort to put himself in sixth. He's up the road from Tyler Vermack in seventh and Nico Shaska in eighth place. Melvin Milliston in ninth, rounding out the top 10. Finn Gombert with Exclusive. Matthew Copsey in 11th with High Caliber. Chris Farish in 12th with Tadeusz Lichka, your championship leader, in 13th for the start of round 4. In 14th place is Dave Spiller with Onid Racing, the 993, up the road from Martijn van Manen, who rounds out the top 15. Right behind him is Spencer Brown, another Mustang, in 16th place. Nicholas Stahl in 17th, Ian Skeen in 18th, Harry Thompson in 19th, and Ellison Williams to round out the top 20. Yasserevich Riyad in 21st place ahead of Alberto Aragoneses in 22nd, with 23rd going to Joachim Eriksson, Jan Bettentrup 24th, and Daniel Karlborg in 25th. Jamal Clouden in 26th, with Rob Appleton in 27th, Chris Grad in 28th, John Williams in 29th, Matthias de Munster in 30th, Lee Hemming in 31st. For this grid, you can see in the pit lane there is one of our race control members. That's Justin Benton in the number 12 Mustang. He won't be competing today, but right at the back of that field, you can see, rounding out what is a 32-car grid, is Anthony Valorio. So taking us away, we can already see the departure up road here. And looking on board, let's see if we can catch on with our current pole sitter. Wilson Gige then looking to carve out a new chapter here in round 4. He does find himself a little bit down and out after a less than desirable result in Brands Hatch at round 3, 30th place. Otherwise upset his impeccable result of leading positions. It was back-to-back wins for him over the course of this season. Now, peculiarly, looking at my notes here, I do find myself confronted with an interesting statistic. Tadeusz Lichka and Jake Garrett are two drivers, the two remaining drivers in this championship, yet to have finished outside of the top 10. Now, this is quite poignant when you consider, especially in Lichka's case, he's starting down in 13th place. So he's already got quite the fight on his hands here in Watkins Glen. He's got to get up through the order amidst the wettest conditions we've seen so far this season. An hour of racing to follow. So heading through that inner loop, you can see this is going to be a really treacherous area. It's already trouble in dry conditions. When the weather's on your side, you'll still see trouble down here at the axis between turns 4 and 5. Technically not even classified as a corner. Was introduced the newest addition to the track in 1992. And through turn 5, you can see that standing water on the right-hand side there, just off of the racing line. Just got a report in there, whilst we take a look at the formation lap, that Anthony Valorio seems to have disconnection issues, so that could be trouble for the 41. He starts 32nd on this grid today. And this is going to be quite a daunting sight for these three Mustangs. They have got the world's weight upon their shoulders here, especially when you consider in the case of Gige and Sievert, they possess the chance here to emerge from out of Lichka's shadow and take the lead of the championship by force before the season midway. So this is utmost importance for them to not mess around today. This is going to be a very serious drive in the bookings for these two. Gige already grinning ear to ear with an extra 3 points to his tally. That will currently put him right now, if both of them were to DNF, still a single point up the road from that of Tobias Sievert. Down towards turn 8 we go, and when you consider a grid of this scale, 32 vehicles, folks, that is no small number. Especially when it's 32 machines, well over 40 to 50, perhaps even 60 tons in all of steel, carbon fiber, aluminium, what have you, charging headstrong down to a tiny, tiny little claustrophobic section of the track like the inner loop chicane in pouring wet conditions with no visibility and barely any grip. It is a recipe for disaster. We'll see exactly then how our drivers choose to challenge this status today. Down towards turn 10 and 11, and see starting that formation process, 3 Mustangs and an Aston. The Ferrari for company at the back of that top. Actually, sorry, I should say a Ferrari, I believe, Yes, it would be Freno Radic. So yes, a Ferrari for company in the back of that top 5. Bottom line, though, of these 3, we are expecting a very lively start here, especially on that front row between championship competitors. This could be make or break for them today as we head into round 4 of the XCL Pro Series, heading down towards the line. 32 cars in all, a staggeringly high number, 16 either side of it. 1 hour of racing set before us here in the pouring wet here in New York, and we are green and racing, and right off the bat, trouble for the 23. A drive-through penalty issued already, and contact to go with it between our front row down towards turn 1 at the 90. The 24 leads from the 789. You can see from behind him, Toby Cyril defends against the advances of Carlos Dish, heading up through the S's for the first time. This is where things can seriously go wrong for our drivers today, but already breaking away from the crowd goes Wilson Gige. Looking down the line, we can see Chris Grad towards the back of the field, looking for Toby Cyril's point of view. He's got the run on Tobias Siebert. He's looking for his chances up the inside. It was a little bump there between the two, heading down towards the inner loop chicane. Now, it could get worse from here. Fortunately, filters back into single file from behind them. You can see Dish and Radic. Davis not too far behind either, but you can see it is absolute bedlam as the yellow flags do fly. Spun around. That is Tadeusz Lichka. We saw it in the background. The 996, the championship leader, in serious disarray right off of the bat. That is not the kind of news you want to see. You can see there, turned around over the nose of another VXS car. You can see, I believe that to be Martijn van Manen. I'm not yes, it was Martijn van Manen. Several cars caught up in that incident. Looking here from the perspective of Spencer Brown, the yellow flags are still out. More trouble for Lichka. This is disaster for him. He leads the championship here, and with another incident now coming from the BMW of Rob Appleton, down at turn 6, this is an abysmal start for the championship leader. Not the kind of start he needs, and not the kind of start he's going to be able to recover from in a hurry here. Already 2 minutes into the session, and we are seeing bedlam erupt here in Watkins Glen. Watch here from the view of Joachim Eriksson and just get a scope on board with a car caught right in the thick of it, right in no man's land, as it were. We're on board with Frantic Motorsports' Joachim Eriksson. You can see just the lack of visibility. There is, up in front of him there, 18 race cars. Not that you can see even one of them amongst the monstrous spray being generated there. Into the pit lane we just saw was Alberto Aragonese. He's also in the pit lane right now. Martijn van Manen and Chris Farish. Already 3 cars in the pit on emergency repairs. Eriksson being challenged by his teammate Daniel Karlborg, the pair of them being pressured by Dave Spiller in the 993 Onid Esports Ferrari. We've just seen word there from, I believe, looking at it there, and it's Andre Damrat saying the server appears to be unstable. So there is a little bit of a connection warning at play here. The 23 has now served its drive-through penalty, but let's try and catch back on board with our drivers at the front of the field to see what the status of affairs is looking like. Gige in first, Sievert second, Cyril third, so no change of status there for the Fords. We see here with Carlos Dish and Freno Radic at the back of our top 5. Nothing seems to be different for them. 4th and 5th right now, and with Dan Davis right behind, Tyler Vermack in pursuit as well. It seems all peachy up in the top 10. Watching here with Ian Skeen, currently 12th place with Euro Titans. Right behind him, Harry Thompson, eclipsed somewhere in the masses there of the spray generated by his V8 Vantage. Is that Ferrari lurking around in the mist? We also believe at this time, and this is from reports I'm being told, that Chris Farish may have had a disconnect, hence why he is in the pit lane. Now, this is not the kind of news you want to see, and really, this kind of reflects back on a point I've been making over quite a few championships, is G-Portal is quickly losing its fit-for-purpose status on ACC, and it doesn't matter really at what level of the sport you're playing at. These are, of course, the big leagues. The Pro Series is an invitational paid event. You would expect that G-Portal respect that, but no, it is indiscriminate and wrathful. Looking up the order, we can see looks to be a little bit of a fight on our hands coming up here. The 2 BMWs of 5-Star Esports. It's Riyad Yasarevich and Jan Bettentrup. We also want to take a look up the order, as you can see very close from one another. Melvin Milliston and Tyler Vermack. Another yellow flag, this time between turns 10 and 11, and that's for the 996. Lichka in even more trouble I mean, at this rate, he's gunning for a DNF. You can see emerging amongst the fray, though, a blind charge by the 97. Matthew Copsey just absolutely blindsided Melvin Milliston on his way to the inner loop chicane. Bizarre stuff from the 97. He had the run out through the S's, took the McLaren for a walk before he hit that inner loop. More trouble, though. This is for the 991. We've just got word of it down in the inner loop chicane. Even more trouble on the way, so it seems. Let's see if we can catch on board, though, with that of Matthew Copsey, a man on a mission, so it seems, with high caliber. You can see right now, had a big slide out through turn 7. We can see Gijay and Siebert looking to go head-to-head here for the race lead. So we're going to cut onto the main view here just so that we can swap between battles on a whim. Let's stay on board, though, with our leading pair here. It's Fats GT versus Exclusive. Mustang versus Mustang. Two championship rivals in the play here for the lead, heading down towards turn 10. Gijay used to be the 23. He's now the 24. Now making his way out through turn 11, following on his trails. The 789 makes contact with the wall. That's trouble for Tobias Siebert. We're looking here at the fight of first place, heading down towards turn 1. From behind them, you can see a real mission here on display for that of Matthew Copsey. Got up and around Melvin Milliston. We also see, having dropped down, so it seems quite a way there, was Finn Gombert. In serious trouble. He's now out behind Spencer Brown in the 923. Oh my goodness, from behind there, that is Harry Thompson spinning out down at the 90. How he was able to avoid contact with anyone there. I mean, it was like that one scene from the Matrix of Neo dodging the bullets. How on earth did he get that lucky? Well, he re-emerges right now out behind that of Joachim Eriksson's 333 Frantic Motorsports BMW. Meanwhile, up the order, we can see very close fighting here. Finn Gombert looking to have a great fight here with that of Nicholas Dahl on his tail. He's also chasing down Spencer Brown on his way through the inner loop. Now, this isn't to take away from what's been going on up on that front row. These two have just divided just far enough to where we can divert our attention. Nicholas Dahl still in pursuit. And with Finn Gombert up the road, we are looking overall here at a fight of 11th place from the point of view of Gombert in that 788 Porsche. Bear in mind, all of this has kicked off, folks, in the span of 7 minutes of racing. Unbelievable. Little bit of a desync there. That was a bit spotty on the frame rates, of course. We are recording this on a Series S, so we are hoping that it stays through to the very end on us here. You can see in the background as well is the fight up the road. Copsey v Milliston. Right now sandwiched in between two velocity cars, with Milliston blindsided by Copsey on the run down the back straight. That Ferrari had a phenomenal run in the last couple of laps, and I want to point out the silent procession, as it were. Skeen chipping away here. He's been a real ninja on the grid, just working in silence, working in the shadows, wherever the shadows can be generated during the day. But now he finds himself in the top 10, up the road from Spencer Brown, up the road from Finn Gombert, who is looking to take Brown for a ride here. In through turn 11, Porsche versus Ford. Into the pit lane goes Spencer Brown, so that promotes Finn Gombert and Nicholas Dahl to the fight of 12th. Fight of 11th, I should say. My mistake there between those two. Gombert in 11th, Dahl 12th. Ellison Williams moves to 13th. Riyad Yasarevich in 14th. And Jan Bettentrup rounds out the top 15. Behind him, you can see it's Dave Spiller. Now, bringing our attention back up to the front row, you can see our two Mustangs have not gone anywhere, folks. The 24 of Gijay and the 789 of Siebert. Absolutely inseparable here at round 4. The opening 10 minutes have given rise to them just moving slowly but surely away from Cyril, who's starting to fall into the iron sights here at the 54. Carlos Deach looking to have a go at a podium fight in the near future. We've seen a lot of drivers make that early door leap to the pit lane. We saw most recently there by Spencer Brown. Now, the strategic element of it, of course, about 57 seconds according to XCL TV's calculations on a start to finish pit lane run for that mandatory pit stop. So it chips away a minute overall, but you'd rather chip away a minute now than chip away a minute later. And I think that is the going rate as of right now for the 923. That was the governing decision behind it all. Looking further away from this fight just briefly to see the status of affairs here. Dahl now being separated by Gombert by a factor of just over half a second. That Porsche has really gotten a wriggle on since gaining 11th position. Knowing now he's got to push hard, otherwise he's subject to lose that out under strategy. That out of Spencer Brown with Fats GT. Half a second away. These two still fighting on. Milliston versus Copsey. I must say, a brilliant run so far by Matthew Copsey of High Caliber Racing. We've seen in the last lap as well, Sievert now up to the fastest lap, dives for the inside, down at the 90. This can only end one way. Surely it does not, but he takes the lead. A bit of a bump there from the 789 to the 24. Tobias Sievert up to the lead of the race here in Watkins Glen. Get a look at that on the replay. Down towards turn 1. It was biblical scenes for the 789. Took the leap. It was definitely a little bit ballsy, all things considered, but he did get the move in. But as we're seeing heading down to that inner loop chicane, Gige has not lost track of the 789. Do forgive us there for the little bit of desync. It happens when we come away from the replay, so don't worry too much about the server. Or do, up to you, totally your preference. Out through turn 5 then. Now having put himself up the road by looking at it there, a couple car lengths. We're talking about 2 car, perhaps even, oh no, I would definitely say, yeah, 2 car lengths. We're talking front to back there between the 789 and the 24. Tobias Sievert leads here in Watkins Glen, and it pushes Wilson Gige down to 2nd. In the background, nearby fight coming up, and it's 3 cars as opposed to 2. Copsey's still in pursuit here of Milliston. Milliston having got himself back up the road from Copsey. So he's going to have to do that magical move we saw back on the exit of turn 4 into turn 5 all over again. So it seems with Milliston struggling for grip, he could be inviting in an advance by the 97, but it would be naive to not consider the third party involved, and lurking in the shadows from behind that Ferrari has been the silent killer, the 313 of Ian Skeen. That Aston Martin is going to make mincemeat of the situation if these two continue to trip over one another. Bear in mind, not too far away from him either, as a driver who's really gotten a move on in the last 15 minutes here. Finn Gombert in the 788 is one to consider. Well, after that move, Gige currently finds himself at the last interval, 6/10 clear of Sievert, who now takes the lead of this race. Cyril maintains 3rd, Deech 4th, and Radic in 5th. Davis still in 6th. Vermaak on a comfortable drive in 7th. The same cannot be said for his teammate Melvin Milliston. He's in 8th and defending vehemently from a 2-pronged attack by Copsey and Skeen to round out that top 10. Looking further behind, Gombert and Dahl 11th and 12th. Williams and Riyadh in 13th and 14th. Bettentrup in close pursuit by Spiller for the fight of 15th place. A little bit of a wobble there by Jan Bettentrup. That could invite in the reserve for Onid to come and have a go up through the S's. We'll stay with these two for just a moment. Up through turns 2, 3 and 4. Dave Spiller looking at a move for 15th place. The opening quarter hour has not disappointed in unfathomably wet conditions here in Watkins Glen. You can see eyeing his way to the inside. Bear in mind, he's taking on a lot of water in doing so, but Spiller has to back out. Very nearly contact between himself and Bettentrup down through the inner loop chicane. It is phenomenal stuff we're seeing in the early doors of today's race. Out through turn 5, he's got the rotation over that BMW, and we're going to start to see this trade-off between the front-engined and mid-engine cars, to where the mid-engine cars in wet conditions get a lot more oversteery, so they've had to be tuned, basically, to be a little bit more understeery, sort of a level to that current heel. And that's the same story in the opposite direction for that of the front engine cars. They've been designed to be a little bit more oversteery, because in the wet conditions by default there'll be a lot more understeery. So it's a fine balancing act these two find themselves in, and you can see the consequence of it is that a front engine car and a mid engine car are almost parallel for performance heading down corner to corner. Physics side rotation should be on the side of Spiller. As we've seen right now, he's struggling to keep wind behind Bettentrup's BMW. We've just seen as well a recent move now up to the lead once again. Wilson Gige gets the move secured between turns 11 and 1 over to Tobias Sievert. Heading down towards the S's. Now, I think this is far from over. We may have missed the exchange back there for Gige to take the lead into the wall. That's contact for Sievert. That could be pay dirt for Cyril. He's up to 2nd. Oh my goodness, get a look at that on the replay there. We saw that not long ago for that of, I think it was Dan Davis back in free practice. We were trying to catch on with him to see the track. And there, that's a 4-wheel slide. That's aquaplaning for Tobias Sievert. That's detrimental to his efforts today. That could be serious trouble for him right now. That pushes Toby Cyril up to 2nd. Sievert down to 3rd. We don't know the scope of the damage there. It looked like a relatively minor impact for the 789. You can see the damage there on his right-hand side where he made contact with the wall at the S's. We do not yet know the full extent, but it will definitely rear its ugly head here in the next 15 minutes when we get into that halfway mark. Of course, that mandatory pit stop is mostly for fuel. There's little strategic concern for tyres, knowing that they can go the full hour, albeit with great difficulty. Drivers rest assured in the confidence they may not have to explicitly consider a tyre swap, which would add, I think, perhaps even more time to their pit stop. It'd also add more time to their race overall, as they're going to spend a lot more time acclimatizing new tyres to absolutely polar conditions. You see here with Carlos Diaz, he's dropped behind Sievert by 1.9 seconds at this time. Not too far away. You can see the physical gap is much closer than the data would suggest, so it's not really in our best interest to count the Aston Martin out, but he's a lot further away than the other Ford. Speaking of Astons, here's Ian Skeen, now looking to get the leg up here on Matthew Copsey, making his way in towards turn 11. You can see he went for the wider line. The back end did sort of come away from him almost. The car was in that four-wheel slide that put Sievert in the wall not long ago, but he's up on the inside here of Matthew Copsey. Down towards turn 1 we go. Can he solidify a move? Going later on the brakes, Copsey with a very, very valiant defense. Can he hold his nerve up against the Aston Martin? The answer, in short, no. Into the S's we go. Could there be room for fight back here? We've seen how good his momentum conservation is through the opening sector. It's what got him that move on Milliston not too long ago. With that McLaren a distant memory, the Aston Martin's got him pitched, and it's pushing, right now, it's pushing Copsey further back towards the sights of Finn Gombert to put himself in the top 10. In the inner loop chicane here, we can see broad difference in line between the Ferrari and the Aston. Heading to the outer loop, up the inside, you can see greater momentum to the benefit of the 97. Copsey up the inside will be to the outside at turn 6. So who succumbs to the brakes first? So it seems, holding the inside, letting him run the longer length around the road here, around the corner, I should say, on the exit of turn 6, heading in towards turn 7. Unbelievable stuff between these two. These two very well in tune with each other's game here, but all of that pushing and shoving has invited in Finn Gombert and Nicholas Dahl of Exclusive and Frantic. Not far away, mind you, as well, would be the consideration of VXS Motorsports' Ellison Williams and Yasserevich Riyad of 5-star, 13th and 14th. They're not too far away at all from this skirmish. All in all, for 9th place. So, looking at it, after 15 minutes of racing, Wilson Gige leads here in Watkins Glen after a brief loss of the lead by that of Tobias Sievert, who now, after a brief incident, has dropped to the back of the podium. It puts Toby Cyril in 2nd place for now. As you can see by the data, the gap is starting to slim. Oh, what a bit of car control there by the 789. That is a proper code brown for Tobias Sievert. He's had enough problems today to last a lifetime. This is on the exit of the 90. Oh, that was close. That was unfathomably close for that of Tobias Sievert. He is definitely going to be sweating if he wasn't already. Looking further down the line, we're going to try and catch on board with at least one of the cars in this fight right now. Let's see if we can catch on board. We're trying to aim here. Oh, fantastic. With that of Matthew Copsey. 97 finds himself under attack here. He's in a defensive fight for 10th place in a battle that he may not stand chance of winning. You can see them Ferrari right now flailing through the corners with Finn Gombert laser precise to the apex in that Porsche behind. Far fewer signs of struggle for the Porsche than what we have seen so far on that Ferrari. But you've really got to owe it here to Matthew Copsey. He's gone above and beyond for that 97. Further down the line, we can see a great bunch of cars here towards the back of the field. We will try and pay attention to some of the fights going on round back. Very briefly, though, here is the fight for 10th place. Copsey v Gombert. Dahl in pursuit as well, not far away. Williams and Riyad. Skeen now 1.2 seconds up the road, so he's in the top 10. He's got the grid right where he wants them, and it's just going to be a slow march here. It's a matter of when and not if Skeen finds another position to suit his liking. Nearest in his iron sights, Melvin Milliston in 8th place. Watching right now with Copsey in through turns 10. More trouble for the 996 as we've seen there down at turn 7. Even more compounded issues for that of Tadeusz Lichka. The championship leader has yet to have finished outside of the top 10. Today might be the day. Very wide though out through turn 11, nearly an encounter with the wall, and you can see that's almost immediately sent him into a frenzy to cover off the inside on the wet line here. Both of them sacrificing time to the car behind them, that being Nicholas Dahl down towards turn 1. Matthew Copsey in full defensive mode, but he's just got no more grip to give, because up the inside goes Finn Gombert, following on his trails into turn 2. Could be the other Ferrari here, the Frantic Motorsports number 987 of Nicholas Dahl. Very nearly into the wall as well, though. Gombert in trouble. So here comes the Ferrari of Matthew Copsey. You can see threading the Iber Needle up the inside on the back straight. A valiant retake of position, but where will it carry? Into the inner loop chicane. Very easy to lose your balance in through this section. Now into the outer loop. One slight deviation from the racing line, and it could be doom. Now out through turn 5. Into turn 6 we go. That Porsche barely away from the Ferrari. Both of them looking, scrounging for but a millimeter of space on the inside. It is feral, the efforts between Copsey and Gombert. A brilliant fight for the ages here. Looking for the inside down at turn 7. Snipped off the nose again by the Ferrari. It's a great defense by Copsey. It's a great attack by Gombert. And now you can see it come to a head here on the boot straight between turns 7 and 8. As on the inside, it's a drag race. 6 cylinders against 6 cylinders. And it's contact between the pair into turn 8. This is all playing devilishly into the hands of Nicholas Dahl, as it looks to be a free position if this continues to escalate, but he's forced all the way to the outside here on Copsey, but that could be a free position out of turn 9 into turn 10. He's up on the inside of Matthew Copsey, who has been frantic in his efforts to keep position. Running onto the water there, very nearly trouble for Nicholas Dahl, trying to go around the outside. Matthew Copsey downgrades from a fight of 10th to a fight of 11th, but the long way around seemed to be the right kind of road for him. It's my way or the highway for the 97 down towards turn 1. In the background there, you can see Riyad Yasarevich sizing up Ellison Williams for a move to 13th place. Keep an eye to that one. 38 minutes left to go. Looking up the order right now, the 24 continues to lead. So Wilson Gige looking at another win here. He was broken off of his potential run of hat-trick victories by that of Tobias Sievert back in Brands Hatch on a sort of result to forget, really, for that of Gige. But it looks to be redemption day by the looks of things right now. 20 minutes strong into the session, 22 minutes actually, as we make our way into the 37-minute mark. Now on his way down towards turn 6. Really, the battle's so captivating, even the dogs want a word in on it. That fight for 11th still going on for Copsey, but right now with Dahl being backed all the way, so it seems, up into the ensuing fight from behind him, Riyad Yasarevich versus Ellison Williams, things could get dicey in the near future. Here is Nicholas Dahl in 12th place, 1.8 seconds up the road from Williams, who looks to be really quite vulnerable here to an advance by Riyad Yasarevich. The reserve driver filling in for James Mason for 5 Star Esports. He's out through turn 9 into turn 10 and 11. But, was that a disconnect? I think it was, actually, as a matter of fact. Let's see if we can get a look here. No. So as you can see here, Tennis asking which comms in chat there when Archie702 said dog comms. It's because my dog barked into the microphone. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Out through turn 1, trouble for Williams. That could be pay dirt for Riyad Yasarevich in the 413 5-star Esports BMWs. You can see all the way in the slick there. Williams in a really tough spot out through the S's, and that's going to allow for the imminent arrival of Dave Spiller in the 993. Charges up through turn 4. We're on the back straight here, and he's got the run on Williams, but he's just a little too far away for a move side by side right off the bat. But the chances are there in this lap. You see a 3-car fight here. Riyad Yasarevich, Ellison Williams, and Dave Spiller in the fight of 13th place. Just getting a look here up through to the top three very briefly. It is still a Ford 1-2-3 on our hands here. Zhizhe, Cyril, and Sivit. You can see, though, that Tobias Sivit, despite being knocked down to third place on his incident up the S's, has not let go of his chances to return to second. 1.2 seconds of the last interval between those two in a potential fight for second on the horizon. We're back on board with Ellison Williams. Now a distant sight from that of Riyad Yasarevich looking up the inside. Dave Spiller, very enthusiastic efforts there by the Onid reserve in the 993 to get up into 14th place. Williams really got his hands full. Out through turn 9, heading towards turn 10. And see, he is properly elbows out now, and you can perhaps see the context as to where that's coming from. Now, we failed to recognize it earlier, but he was one of several cars caught up in that incident at the start of the race today. We see heading to the pit lane goes Ellison Williams. Also in the pit lane right now is Ian Skeen of Euro Titans Esports. Do just give me one moment. Apologies for the interruption there. We did just briefly have to hop away from the microphone. But to give some context as to why, as we've now seen several more drivers into the pit lane, including Alberto Aragoneses, Joachim Eriksson, Nico Shaska, and looking into their Ellison Williams as well. Give some context. As at the time of recording right now, I am actively puppy sitting. We are looking after one of our pups, and she has, to put bluntly, obliterated part of the house. So that's going to be fun for me after that. As we see now, trying to pick up on the pieces of where we left off. Heading towards that halfway mark, so we're going to be seeing the bulk of our pit stops coming up in the next 7 or so minutes here. A lot of drivers in a wet race are going to be looking at the very tried, very true, and very safe 50-50, or as a matter of fact, even a 60-40, which has seemingly overtaken the 50-50 for those slightly less sure on strategy. See here with Cyril and Sivit getting much... Actually, my mistake there. This is not Cyril and Sivit. We're actually still watching on board with Ellison Williams and Spencer Brown. But let's catch on board here with Cyril and Sivit. So we can now see a very close state of affairs between these two. Making their way currently down towards turn 10 and 11. There could be the fight for second right before a dive to the pit lane. So let's see what they can do. As we see there, gunning for the pit lane. There is Tobias Sivit. Runs a little bit over the lines, but you can forgive him for the absolutely brutal amounts of rain on the track right now. Tobias Sivit into the pit lane. So that allows Carlos Deesh to usurp third place off of the number 789 exclusive Ford. We can see down the line, though, with 41 getting his hands full here with Jamal Clouden. This is Anthony Valorio having a spot above her there on the exit of the 90. It happens to the best of us, and we've seen it several times already. Tobias Sivit, namely, had trouble out of the exit of turn 1 not long ago. We saw a very nearly big incident for him in at the wall past turn 1. Into the pits as well, alongside Sivit, joins Dan Davis and Melvin Milliston. That leaves Wilson Gige out by his lonesome here. With 31 minutes to the checkered flag, it is looking like a potential Gige victory once more. And this would be more than enough, especially given the situation surrounding the 996 of Tadeusz Lichka, the championship leader who had yet to have finished outside of the top 10 coming into today's round. This does give the opportunity up to Gige to take the lead of the championship with an iron vice. With Sievert having his own share of problems, right now it's been near enough flawless for the 24. Sievert then off of the jacks and out of the pit lane. We'll see exactly where he slots in as he makes his way down towards turn 2. So Sievert down of 14th place. He's out past Chris Grad and Matthias de Munster of Blaze Motorsport. Now, de Munster has been one that we've seen very little of today. He now finds himself under provisional vice here to be 12th place up the road from his teammate Chris Grad in the 78. Both of them currently sandwiching a lapping car in the middle. Or I suppose lapped car in the middle, looking at it there. That's one of the owned BMWs. So looking down the line, you'd be looking in the direction of Rob Appleton. I believe was also caught up in that major incident from not long ago. Wilson Gige is into the pits, so it allows Freno Radic to take the lead of the race. Tyler Vermack comes into the pits. We'll see what is the going rates here. Finn Gombert makes his way in. Matthew Copsey follows in his wake, and so too does Nicholas Dahl. It is a mass exile to the pit lane, but you see running over the marks, Yadi Asarevic, whether he meant to or not, looked like he was going to the pit lane, but backs out. 993, Dave Spiller follows in suit. Harry Thompson is into the pit lane. Matthias de Munster nearest to the line. We'll see what the consideration is for the 33 Lexus, a rare sight in modern ACC. One of the oldest cars in circulation. That Lexus stays out. Chris Grad, his teammate, though, with the Mustang, number 78 of Blaze Motorsport. Into the pit lane he goes, and it is one of the largest swarms of cars we've seen so far. Nicholas Dahl now up to second. It allows Riyad Yasarevic to third place. Dave Spiller up to fourth. See exactly how they stack out with strategy in their way. Now, their main considerations are that of Wilson Gige and Tobias Sievert, currently 7th and 11th. And as we're about to see here for Sievert, that's going to shift up a few positions up to 9th with 2 cars. Copsey and Thompson still in the pit lane before the update. Oh my goodness, it's sideways for the 789. Oh, into the wall he goes. That if he could hold that one, that would have been absolutely legendary. But out through turn 4, you can see the back end kicked up and away from Sievert. And I think it was round about here, yes. So there's a huge pocket of standing water you can't see from our angles here on the camera. Sitting on the left-hand side, there's just no grip to be found. He was practically skating on ice as he made his way around turn 4. That is more trouble for Tobias Sievert. This is not the kind of news that he needs, knowing that his lead is already compromised and it can only stand to get worse right now, as under strategy, he's behind Dan Davis. Now by a factor of 3.3 seconds, the Lamborghini currently looking to make his way up the order, but ooh, a little bit of a stab there on the inside. 5-star Jupiter in chat saying almost identical to the crash I had where I did a 360. It was a huge step out sideways there for Sievert. This has really been for him a race to forget on what stood as almost equal chances with those two, Gige and Sievert, separated by 2 points in the championship coming into today. It has really swung quite violently, mind you, in one way, that being to that of Wilson Gige. And see who now gets up past round Matthias de Munster up into the top 5. That'll be up to more positions by the looks of things here. Freno Radic now exiting the pits, actually having been brought in on emergency. Was that the 313? Yes, it is. And that looks to a bit of disconnect for Ian Skeen. So another victim of disconnect here. We saw was disconnect troubles earlier for Villorio and I believe also for Farish. And now the latest victim, Ian Skeen in the 313 Euro Titans Aston Martin. This is not great signs here for Aston. Especially when you consider as well, and to address the elephant in the room, or I suppose the lack of the elephant in the room, Carlos Disch is a mysterious absentee of this race. And what started as 32 cars, we have mysteriously lost 6. Now, the question therein remains, we see reconnecting to the field, Martijn van Manen, another driver who was disconnected today. I think we're starting to see a bit of a repeat pattern. Toby Cyril also found himself victim to this. That's one to consider as well. He was a poignant factor in the podium for the longest time. This has been a real mixed bag of races today. Ellison Williams reconnects, and yes, I think we are starting to see a bit of a G-Portal Classico playing out before our very eyes here, folks. And there you can see, my eyes don't deceive, that's the 54 of Carlos Disch. Oh, Lord. This is not going to be fun for a lot of the drivers today here, especially those from the pit lane now. They've been struck by G-Portal. Not a great time for them at all, but it is a great time for Wilson Gijé. Make no mistake of it. He's riding on highs here. Having lost out on his opportunity to go 3 for 3 on race wins, this is more than redemption for him, especially seeing that Tobias Sievert, now under strategy, will find himself at the best of times 4th place behind Dan Davis and Freno Radic. This is pay dirt for Gijé. 3 more drivers, though, precariously are going the extra mile here, where we were considering the worst of times, perhaps a 60-40. Could we even be in the consideration of a 70-30? Now, it's not impossible. We've definitely seen drivers do even more than this, but to see 3 of them is another question entirely. Right now, those 3, Riyad Yasarevic leading the charge right now in the 4-1-3 5-star esports car. Dave Spiller in 2nd place. Matthias de Munster on your screens at the moment in the 33 Blaze Motorsports Lexus. Currently finds himself in 4th place behind Wilson Gijé. He's on the exit of turn 5. It has been a very bizarre race, and actually the bulk of our displacements, the bulk of our incidents here have not come from on-driver action. It has actually come from probably the bane of all sim racing, server problems. See here, this is Nico Schaska chasing Joachim Eriksson for 16th place on track. We'll get on board with the defending of 2 here. Eriksson with Frantic. Being chased up through the S's. He is being hounded for position right now for 16th by Nico Schaska. The 992 in hot pursuit as we make our way from turn 4 on the back straight in towards the inner loop chicane. That Porsche, we know, one of the best cars under braking, but he has to play things a little bit more hesitantly with the wet weather in play. Into turn 5, Eriksson putting up a stand-up job here to hold position. Meanwhile, looking at the data, Riyad Yasarevic into the pit lane. It puts Dave Spiller to the lead of this race with Onid Racing. 23 minutes on the clock here. We still have 2 more drivers expected to pit. "23 minutes left to go. Mass disconnect for at least 10 of us, reports there by Ian Skeen. So yeah, that is, as you can see, there's the toll of it. Rob Appleton, Jamal Clouden, John Williams, Lee Hemming, Anthony Velorio. Actually, as I'm looking at it here, those are all still out on track. So those aren't, actually, that's, Jamal Clouden's in on damage. So for a lot of the drivers we've seen, to recount, we had Carlos Disch, we had Ian Skeen, Chris Farish. I believe Anthony Velorio had a disconnect right at the start. That's why he started from the back of the field. There you can see as Riyad Yasarevic emerging from the pit lane. Out past Tyler Vermack right now with Melvin Milliston up the road from him as we speak. He actually drops in behind, so it seems the 93 of Spencer Brown. That puts Yasarevic in 15th as it stands. That still does leave things up to question on what is happening for Spiller and de Munster. The 2 drivers still yet to make their way to the pit lane. What has been a very confusing race here in Watkins Glen. It started off on a real high note. G-Portal strikes again. It leaves us right now with a significant toll of drivers no longer in competition. It started as 32 cars. We now find ourselves to 24, factor of a loss of 8 vehicles. "21 minutes left to go then. Right now, closest fight on track, Riyad Yasarevic and Spencer Brown for 14th place. Battle of the heavyweights here, Ford and BMW. Ford, especially when you consider back to the talks of balance of performance earlier on in today's broadcast. You can see that Ford gained 12 kilos. BMW, I should actually be a little bit more light-hearted in calling them a heavyweight, 5 kilos off of the M4. They've actually been taking a little bit of attention there to the weight. The Munster is in. That puts Dan Davis up to 5th. Tyler Vermack up to 6th. Melvin Milliston up to 7th. Alberto Aragoneses, I must say, was he was in and around the performance today. And like Ian Skeen, it's been a very quiet one for him for the greater majority of today's race. But he does find himself being rewarded by consistency. He's in the top 10. He's up the road from Finn Gombert down in 10th place. He's currently in 9th. Looking here at another battle, Ericsson and Shaska still duking it out here for 16th place on track. With De Munster in the pits, they're not far off the potential argument of being back up with him. You can see De Munster is on his way out, hemorrhaging positions here. Could he make it out of the pit lane before we see Ericsson and Shaska? It is a slim chance for him, as you can see already down through the 90 there. You can see the Lexus in the background. So for Joachim Ericsson, he now shifts up to 15th. Doesn't shiv his way up to 15th, I sure hope not. You see Ericsson v Shaska. It is dangerously close now. Nico Shaska chancing away around the outside here at turn 4. He's cut off by the BMW, but he's all the way in the slipstream. Straight line speed will only get you so far with the Porsche right on your tail into the inner loop chicane. Does he overextend? Ericsson appearing not to. Now on his way to turn 5. Bear in mind, he has got to really do a lot more than what he's doing right now to shake that Porsche off. It's clung to him like a bad habit on the exit of turn 5. From right behind them as well. Oh, very wide out of turn 6 there at Shoot Curve. That's from Matthias de Munster and the number 33 Blaze Motorsports Lexus. Staying on board with Nico Shaska on his way down towards turn 7. Joachim Ericsson has really got his hands full here. Looking up the road, there is still a close fight here beneath a second between Brown and Riyadh on their exit of turn 8. And with Spiller in the pit lane, dread it, run from it, Gigé returns to the lead. It was inevitable for the 24 to be back on the top step, and it does put Frano Radic, a man who has been given the affectionate nickname by his teammates at the Euro Titans team, the Croatian sensation, into 2nd place. I really did have to keep a very straight face when I said that one, but it is a very light-hearted nickname for him. He is a fantastic talent, and today has been no exemption to him. He has really shown what he's been capable of in that Ferrari. He's interrupted what has been a status quo set in stone by the Ford Motor Company here at their home race in the United States. Ferrari really sticking it there to the blue oval. Tobias Sievert 3rd with the fastest lap, so an additional 3 points. So he's making up here on the damage loss. After all things said and done, you've got to hand it to Sievert for being able to pull that one back. He's put himself back into 3rd place. Pace and strategy are made up for the misfortunes he suffered over the course of this race. Of course, he'll still be clinging to the idea that it could have been better for him today, but he still is presented the chance, as not far up the road is Frano Radic, separated there by Rob Appleton in the Onid Racing BMW in between the pair. A gap of about 4.4 seconds, so the chances are still on the table with 17.5 minutes here for Sievert to return to 2nd and nullify any damage that would have been done outside of just the qualifying result. What it will do if he continues to hold on to that fastest lap as well, as we catch now back on board with Brown and Riyadh, both of them pursuing Harry Thompson in 11th place. So as a matter of fact, let's see if we can get some onboard cameras with them. This looks to be a very solid fight coming up very shortly. On board then with Spencer Brown of the Fatch GT esports team. From behind him, not Harry Thompson. From behind him is Riyadh Yasarevich. From in front of him is Harry Thompson. Down through turn 11 we go. Now, to speak back on whether or not Sievert can hold on to that fastest lap. Now, what it will do, it will effectively nullify that pole position points total brought in by Gigé today. So they will just be standing on whatever the points divide is between 1st and 2nd, as if those extra points never existed. Something to note as well, very close fighting going on further down the field. That right now is for the 78 and the 41. Valorio and Grad just quickly catching on board here. This is the perspective of Anthony Valorio. And you can barely see Chris Stroud up the road from him there, making his way down towards turn 1. All you can see are the 6 slits that those tail lights produce when he slams down on that brake. Nigh impossible to make head or tail of it. Watching here, this is Nico Shaska in the 992. That thunderous howl of the flat 6 in that Porsche. I'm still of the opinion that is probably one of the best sounding engines in circulation on this game. It is an absolute monster. Chasing right now, that's Joachim Eriksson. Slightly obfuscated by the mist generated by his 333. Let's catch back on board with Spencer Brown, because so I'm told those gaps are getting very close here. Back on board with Brown on the inside here of Harry Thompson. In towards turn 8 we go, up to 11th. Can he hold on to it is the question, heading into turns 9 and 10. We caught the very trailing end of that move. He was able to size up Thompson for a run out of turn 7 on the boot straight and got that one tucked in nice, neat and tidy. 9-2-3 into 11th. Thompson down to 12th. That's going to force him into the iron sights of Riyad Yasarevich, and Dave Spiller not too far away at all in 13th and 14th place. Making his way then down towards turn 1. Spencer Brown holds on to 11th for the time being. Let's get a look though around the field as we drop into the 3/4 hour mark. Less than a quarter of an hour left to go here in Watkins Glen, and what has been a very, very bizarre round indeed. Wilson Gige leads with Fats GT. Freno Radic in 2nd place. And do forgive us for the noise. Oh, I'm going absolutely stir crazy having a look after these animals. I tell you that much for free. Back onto the discussion of the standings, though. Wilson Gige leads with Freno Radic in 2nd. We're watching here with Spencer Brown in what is a very close fight up the road. Behind him, you can see there's a fight right now for Harry Thompson down in 12th place, and Riyad Yasarevich fighting with Dave Spiller. Stay on board with those two. We continue the discussion of the standings right now with just less than a quarter of an hour left to go. So looking past the top 3, we find Dan Davis in 4th place with Simplay Racing. A fantastic result looking here for the Simplay Racing reserve in the number 14. He's up the road from Tyler Vermack and Melvin Milliston, the 2 Velocity cars inside of that top 10 right now. They're 5th and 6th ahead of Alberto Aragoneses. A silent agent, as it were, for SRC Motorsports' endeavours today. We're watching with one of their drivers right now, Harry Thompson, being pursued by Riyad Yasarevich and Dave Spiller. Looking further down the order, Finn Gombert on a fantastic hustle in that 788 Porsche. I would say he's in a likely picking for driver of the day, but I'll leave that up to the folks at XCL to really make that final decision. Matthew Copsey finds himself in 9th place ahead of Nicholas Dahl, who rounds out the top 10. Spencer Brown, we saw, made the move up into 11th over Harry Thompson, who now finds himself being pursued vehemently from 12th place by the 13th and 14th place cars of Riyad Yasarevich, or Yasarevich Riyad, depending on how you want to say the name. We've had it spelled both ways. And Dave Spiller. Rounding out the top 15, Joachim Eriksson with Frantic Motorsports. Nico Shaska in close pursuit of the top 15 in the 992. As we see just now, up into the 15th spot goes Shaska. As I believe, hang on but a moment here. Oh my goodness, no, we have seen a disconnect, and it's for Tobias Sievert. Oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, that is huge news. That is huge, huge news. If it could not already be compromised enough for Sievert, that was divine intervention to smite him from the circuit. You see here, trouble for Yasarevich. He's going to leave the gap open for Spiller to come rolling on through there. In through turn 6. The real news of the last 5 seconds, or I suppose the last 5 minutes, is going to be that of Tobias Sievert. A disconnect here in Watkins Glen. It could not have gotten worse for him. He already had trouble throughout the race today, and now in the closing 15 minutes, he has now been plucked from the race entirely. See here, Riyad Yasarevich has had an absolute blinder because he's dropped all the way behind Spiller and Thompson. Meanwhile, Spencer Brown gains leeway to the top 10 further up the road. Nicholas Dahl pursuing Matthew Copsey. This could be one to watch. Let's stay on board with these two. Let's see if we can actually try and get some onboard cameras with them as well. On board with Matthew Copsey, making his way down towards turn 1. Now, this is in the defensive fight right now for 8th place between the two. These two Ferraris have shown great promise over the course of today's race. The 333 we can see is still in very close proximity on their way to turn 11. We were following with them not too long ago. Actually, that's, I believe, to be Joachim Eriksson. We followed with them a little while back. Yeah, we've just seen confirmation in chat there by Tobias Sievert. Holy disconnect. So, yeah, that is... Oh, that cannot be a great day. That really cannot be a great day. But, you know, silver lining to every dark cloud. That was one of the strongest performances I've seen in a while, despite the very obvious, overwhelming disadvantage of the track and weather choice today. It was always going to end up like this, where the weather predictions had it at a 2% chance of mixed conditions. Drivers were praying for a gap so finite it may as well have not existed. Copsey v Dahl, we still watch here. Frantic v High Caliber. In through turn 7 we go. This was the same area that not too long ago Harry Thompson of SRC got sized up for a position by Spencer Brown. These two fighting into the final 10 minutes of the race today. We do have yellow flags, and it's at the outer loop, just past the inner loop for the 36. Let's go and see if we can catch on board with what's just gone on down the line there for the 36 car. Trying to see where they are. It's Jamal Clouden in trouble. He's since gotten back going, so no continued troubles there for the 36, but he did have a spot above. But by the looks of it, seeming that the car is relatively unscathed, we can assume it was a spin out. Back on board then with Copsey in that fight of 8th. Nine minutes left to go in this race, and we're starting to see being picked off from the crowd quite a few drivers by the classic arch nemesis of all leagues here on ACC, that being G-Portal. You can see just how well the momentum has been for Copsey, and this is a real strong point for him. The S's up through Sector 1 on the entry to Sector 2. We've seen him use this to great advantage. He's used this to try and get up on Melvin Milliston. Ultimately, now Milliston's up in the top 5. He's down in 8th place, but a lot of different elements have played a role in that today. Something to consider as well, up the road, not far from these two at this time, is a potential fight coming up shortly between Alberto Aragoneses and Finn Gombert. The 194 and the 788 of SRC and Exclusive look to be duking things out very shortly by the looks of their gaps at this time for 6th place. We're watching right now, though, the battle of 8th between Matthew Copsey of High Caliber Racing and Nicholas Dahl of Frantic Motorsport. Looking at the overall standings to see where our other nearby fights could be coming from. We're watching here the fight of 8th place. There is still very close fighting going on between Riyad Yasarevich, who has now since made his fight back into the fight of 11th. Now he's up into 12th, 3.5 seconds from Dave Spiller, who carved through that crowd not too long ago. Harry Thompson now finds himself 1.3 seconds off from Yasarevich, bringing a short close to their fight at this current time. Still the nearest fight on track right now. Hangs in the balance between that of Matthias de Munster and Daniel Karlborg for 16th. And the fight you're seeing here, 8 positions up from them. The fight of 8th between Copsey and Dahl. Contact with the wall, though. You can see on the exit of turn 11. Now, it's happened all the time here. On the exit of turn 11, even in dry conditions, do we see drivers making that mistake. But with the absence of grip and one slight deviation from what you can see now as a formed dry line that took nearly a full hour to develop in this form, can lead to catastrophic results. In through to turn 4, Copsey being pursued by Dahl. It's getting closer and closer now. This was his strong point, and Dahl quickly adapting to the state at hand, chasing him through the inner loop. 97 has got limited options here in his defense of 8th place. You can see a big bump for him out through the inner loop. If he keeps playing with chance like that, he is going to find himself facing the wrong side of the track. On his way out of turn 5, we can see getting closer and closer. Getting a look over the rear view, you can see just through the fog there is that of Nicholas Dahl in the 987. In through turn 7 we go. This is going to get very, very dicey. Make no mistake of it. Let's get on board with the attacking point of view here. We swap from Matthew Copsey to that of Frantic Motorsports as Nicholas Dahl in the 987 Ferrari. And this is really the harder side of things that we're seeing in the wet weather conditions. It ain't easy up the front for the 97, but the 987 has got a world's difference to play against because as you can see, or I suppose what you can't see very clearly, is any evidence of the 97 past a certain point. Out through turn 10, you can see almost completely disappears in the spray generated as he passes through the standing water. Skino asks for Pro Series Season 3. Me and Tinnis on co-coms for the whole season. I wouldn't be against that. I would like to work with the folks over on XCL TV. Would be a fun old time. I'd like to show up for a few rounds, especially if you put Silverstone on the calendar. That is a very, very easy way to get my attention. Out through turn 4, you can see a little bit of an upset earlier on for the 97. That is giving the 987 a very good spur of confidence here to try and challenge for 8th place. But it's hesitation that he's playing with now. You can see for what reason why, because it closes back up immediately. If he just backs off, gives a few foot up to the 97 through the inner loop chicane, he's got a little bit more visibility. He knows where to attack and he knows where to brake. Right now, if he stays any closer, all he sacrifices is his own ability to see the track in front of him. Down towards turn 7. These two have been a real treat for the eyes to see this fight. Two Ferraris very close to one another. Two drivers very evenly matched. Also, because I am quite a sucker for good colour theory, I do like the yellow and blue. Down through turn 8 we go. These two still very close to one another. Now getting a look on the wider scale as these two continue to mount up on the fight of 8th place. A little bit of a wide run out through turn 8. Now through turn 9. Slowly being compromised under the pressure, so it seems, for Matthew Copsey. He had a fantastic first half. Right now, it's still a very serviceable second half to put a high-caliber car in the top 10 here in Watkins Glen. Down through turn 11 we go. Nicholas Dahl, though, definitely has something to say about it with Frantic Motorsport. These two having a whale of a time towards the back of that top 10. Right now, as it stands, though, as we are in the final laps coming up not too far from now, Wilson Zizek leads from Frano Radic. Euro Titans' Croatian sensation, so I'm told, in second place ahead of Dan Davis. A reserve driver for Simplay Racing has gone well above and beyond the call of duty of what was expected of him today to bring a valiant podium result potentially around the corner here. With 3 minutes left to go and a 2.7 second gap, if Tyler Vermack can't reel him in, it'll be Lamborghini on the podium. I believe, looking back through the timeline here, that might be the first time we've ever seen that in this series. I might be mistaken on that one. I will have to double check my notes, but we could be looking at the chances of history here in the Pro Series, at least in Season 2 of the Pro Series, where Lamborghini could get their first podium. Right now, another fight going on nearby. Gombert v Aragoneses could be one to talk about in the next couple of laps here. Bear in mind, with time ticking down and a... Oh, hang on just a moment. We cut away here from Dahl and Copsey. Just to bring to your attention, yellow flags for the 23 car. That was for John Williams. Brought the yellow flags out of the S's. Is now back into the pit lane. But before we could report from the scene of the incident, he has already brought himself to the pit lane. Looking up the road here, we are looking at a chance for Gombert to move to 6th place. Aragoneses has had a very solid, albeit understated race around the drivers around him. You can see a big slide on the exit of turn 11 for Finn Gombert. He's pushing absolutely everything into this final drive today. The leading number 24 not far from the line, so it seems it'll be one more lap coming up from Wilson Zizek in the leading Fats GT car. Looking for his third victory this season. Was denied the opportunity in Brands Hatch. Could be redemption day. We'll see, though, in a moment's time. Cutting away from these two, back on with our twin Ferraris. Copsey and Dahl getting closer and closer. It seems all but inevitable that someone will get side by side. The question therein remains, when they do, who will survive? On the exit of turn 4, we've seen trouble here already. You can see being dragged all the way to the left-hand side. That was but millimetres from the wall for Matthew Copsey. He's putting absolutely everything into this drive for 8th place right now. Nicholas Dahl clinging to his coattails. The two of them running blind in through the inner loop chicane. This could be calamity if they get even a smidge closer. In through to turn 6 we go, out towards turn 7.
Alright man, the leader is on the final lap. Give it a final push.
And fun fact as well, so we've just been told Matthew Copsey was a former driver at AERT and was seemingly taught by Ian Skeen, who now drives for Eurotitan. So he's took a lot of that seemingly to mind. And we've seen Copsey over on the High Caliber Community League GT4 Challenge. He was a very solid talent with Porsche. Now we see him get really the opportunity to spread his wings with Ferrari. You see the final lap is already upon us. The 24 already down at the inner loop chicane, moving like lightning here. Wilson Gige has been unstoppable, but more on that in a moment. Finn Gombert is now within half a second of Alberto Aragonese, and behind as well, we're looking at a fight here in the top 10 between Dave Spiller and Spencer Brown. So where the race lead has all but been decided and the race win is only a few corners away here, the 3rd in this season for Wilson Gige, we are still totally enamoured by 3 fights for the price of 1 here in a rain-battered Watkins Glen. You can see 2 of them on the same stretch of tarmac. Spiller v Brown, Dahl v Copsey, and then not far up the road, Gombert v Aragoneses. We'll see how all 3 of these fights unfold, though. We're going to try and stay on board with them for as long as we can. Now making his way up through turn 4 and also just quickly getting a gander up the road. Gombert v Aragoneses down at turn 5, looking behind them. We can see right now Spiller v Dahl. We'll have to see how all 3 of these fights pan out in a little while here, but heading down towards turns 10 and 11, it has been an unstoppable day for Wilson Gige and Fats GT, where he missed his opportunity back in Brands Hatch to go 3 for 3. He'll still be seeing his 3rd race win of the season here, as coming down to the line, what we have recorded here is the 23, but it's actually the 24, is a race winner once more. Breaks the drought from Brands Hatch on a result to forget from round 3 is a result to remember for round 4. Frano Radic of Eurotitans Esports barrels out through turn 11, heading to the line then for 2nd place on impeccable form today in the 98. Surfed through thick and thin on the podium for Eurotitans. To the line comes Dan Davis, but as you can see here, he's being pursued all the way to the checkered flag here. Can Davis emerge ahead of Vermax? So it seems he's done more than enough with Lamborghini to put them on the podium in what I believe right now, correct me if I'm wrong, is Lamborghini's first this season. To the line, Aragoneses misses out to Gombert. Gombert 6th, Aragoneses in 7th. Let's see here the twin Ferraris we've been watching on board for some time. Let's at least give them the credit of how this pans out at the end of the line. Down towards the line, Matthew Copsey, 8th place for High Caliber. Nicholas Dahl in 9th. From behind them, Spencer Brown pursued for 10th, all the way to the line there by Dave Spiller, who finishes only 3/10 off of him in 11th place. Riyad Yasarevich in 12th. Harry Thompson coming to the line for 13th place. Joachim Eriksson looks at 14th. Wilson Gige, though, is above and beyond. That was different gravy for the 24. We have it recorded here as the 23, but of course, since the last time we were here was all the way in the back end of October, a lot has since changed. To the line comes Eriksson. Shaska in pursuit, but 15th at the end of the line. The Munster being pursued by Carlborg and Valorio all the way to the line here. 16th, 17th and 18th with Chris Grad taking home 19th. Lee Hemming 20th. Rob Appleton in 21st. And Jamal Clouden in 22nd to bring about the end of our results there. As you can see, Wilson Gige is your winner. 3rd time in this season. Missed out on a hat-trick, but takes his 3rd all to the same here in round 4. He wins in Watkins Glen. Frano Radic 2nd with Dan Davis in 3rd. Tyler Vermack in 4th. Melvin Milliston in 5th. Finn Gombert in 6th. Alberto Aragoneses in 7th. Missed out on the last lap. That's got to be a bit of a gut-wrencher there for the 194. Matthew Copsey in 8th. vehement defense there against the 987 of Nicholas Dahl. He finishes 9th. Spencer Brown 10th. Dave Spiller 11th, Riyad Yasarevich in 12th, Harry Thompson in 13th, Eriksson in 14th, Shaska 15th, De Munster 16th, Karlborg 17th, Velorio 18th, Grad 19th, Hemming in 20th, Appleton 21st, and Clouden 22nd. And there you can see a huge toll of DNFs because of the server problems today, and amongst a myriad of other issues, including disconnects for Williams, Sievert, Cyril, Deesh, Skeen, Ellison Williams, Farish, Lichka, Bettentrup, Van Manen. Those are your disconnects, and we've lost quite a hefty toll here. 10 drivers in all. That is brutal. I think one of the most poignant disconnects to have come from that, Tobias Sievert, who was looking on his chances to finish on the podium, has had that chance ripped away from him. It's going to be double time for him in the next round coming up. Looking at the road ahead for him to regain his position in the championship. Looking at where we'll be then, you're with us for the next round as well, so we're not going anywhere until at least the end of the 6th of December 2025. Coming up on the next round then, round 5 of the championship as we hit the season midway. We're heading into a 2-hour race in the land down under in Mount Panorama on the outskirts of the mining town of Bathurst, New South Wales, Australia, on what is set to be war at the season midway. And by the looks of it, with Gige leading the championship. For the entire second half of the season, you'll be directing your attention back over to the folks at XCL TV, picking up on the 20th of December all the way to the 21st of February 2026. From us here at TRTN, it's been a real pleasure today, and we'll be seeing you in the next one coming up 2 weeks from now on the 6th of December. That's all from us here. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Very well done to our drivers today, and very well done to the race winner, Wilson Gige. That's all from us here on TRTN. If you're catching us for our next broadcast, we're going to be at the season midway for Season 4, the Sunday League over on NLRL tomorrow, and what is set to be a very exciting chapter coming up with a lot of juicy news on the way. That's all from us here. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care, and good night.